The woman was in complete shock. Cindy from Canada decided to feed the homeless man who lives near her workplace. She is a friendly woman, and she saw that the man was going through some hard times, something Cindy couldn't stomach. To her, it was an ordinary act of kindness, but for the homeless guy, it was much more than that. When Cindy found out who this person was, she was in complete shock. She never expected that her ordinary act of kindness would go on to have so many consequences. The homeless person? Cindy worked as a waitress in a restaurant and walked the same route to work every day. For a while, she always saw a homeless person sitting in the same spot near her work. No matter what the weather was like, he always sat in the same spot with a lonely look in his eyes. Cindy thought the man always looked very lonely. Still, the man himself didn't seem to mind. He was always in a good mood and smiling at everyone who passed by. In fact, he never asked for help or money. All he wanted was to chat. Cindy thought this was admirable, but also thought the man was keeping his real feelings to himself. Little respect. The reason Cindy thought this was because she'd seen that not everyone was always nice to him. She had often seen people walking past him without even looking at him. She sometimes even noticed that an entire day would go by without a single person stopping to chat with the man. In fact, it sometimes even happened that people laughed at the man. Cindy also once saw a group of boys spit into the man's cup, something Cindy had a hard time seeing and understanding. Time for action. One day, Cindy decided enough was enough. The man was always kind to everyone, and it was time someone gave him something nice in return. She hated that the man was being treated like this. In her eyes, the man was not worth anything less than anyone else, and she decided that she wanted to encourage the man. Lots of money. The food served in the restaurant where Cindy works is certainly not cheap. Guests spend a few $100s a night. This was sometimes difficult for Cindy to understand, because right around the corner, the homeless men slept every day. The difference between rich and poor was painfully visible. Cindy didn't necessarily like her job. She mainly did it so she could pay the bills, save for college, and gain experience in the culinary industry. Yet most of all, she felt powerless. She didn't think it was fair that people were spending hundreds of dollars a night when people were starving a few feet away. She decided to take action. She just had to try and do this unseen, because if her boss found out about her plans, she could lose her job. Unfortunately, her boss, the chef of the restaurant, was present on the restaurant floor. She could hear his yelling to the kitchen staff from afar. Still, she went through with her plan. The plan was to take food from the restaurant and cook something delicious with it. She had to be careful, though. The ingredients at her work are very expensive. Even the olives cost a lot of money. So she had to be very careful that nobody would find out. If her boss realized that she had stolen food, she would immediately lose her job. Cindy didn't feel comfortable stealing ingredients, but it also felt justified to her. She saw it as a Robin Hood situation in which she could contribute to a step in the right direction. Her intentions were good, but stealing is still bad, and she was only too aware of the risk she was taking here. Despite her nervousness, Cindy persevered with her plan. She heard her terrible boss yell at the kitchen staff and knew exactly where he was. This was the perfect time to sneak into the freezer. While she was secretly trying to get closer to the freezer, she heard her boss ranting at her colleagues. Succeeding would feel so good, purely because her boss was making everyone's life miserable in the workplace. A bag full. Finally, Cindy managed to get into the freezer unseen. She was searching for food that wouldn't be missed and eventually managed to pack as many as 20 ingredients into her bag. This may sound like a lot, but Cindy knew exactly how much would get noticed and how much wouldn't. She packed just enough to make something tasty for the homeless person. Cindy couldn't believe her luck until she heard a loud knock on the freezer door while she was still inside. Fear and panic. Cindy was sure she had been caught and she would lose her job. Her heartbeat skyrocketed and a feeling of fear crept over her. The chef realized someone was in the freezer. Normally, no one is allowed in there alone except himself. All the other kitchen staff always had to bring someone with them when they wanted to go into the cold room. The chef quickly realized that there was someone in the cold store without being asked. Cindy was in a complete panic. She had to get out of the cold room as quickly as possible, but she had nowhere to go. The chef was standing at the door, and Cindy could already feel where this was going. Tears were in her eyes. Losing her job would mean that she no longer had any income and would not be able to pay for her culinary studies. In addition, she would acquire a bad reputation in the culinary world and not be able to find a new job quickly. The back wall. Unable to move, the waitress lost all hope. The feeling of despair and panic crept over her as she realized she had to give up her passion, the culinary world. She crept back into the cold room to hide and leaned against the back wall. While waiting for the chef to catch her, something bizarre happened. A way out. The wall Cindy was leaning against was of poor quality. In recent years, that part of the wall had become damaged and weak. As she leaned against it, that section of the wall gave way and Cindy fell through the wall and ended up in the hallway of the restaurant. No one had seen her fall because it was in a sheltered area where mostly the waitresses walked. Cindy couldn't believe her luck. When she could finally carry out her plan and give her home-cooked meal to the homeless person, she was overjoyed. Not only had she provided him with a meal, but also with some money, so that he could buy some more things with if he needed it. The man was so surprised that he was completely stunned. He told her that he had never experienced such kindness. Cindy knew she had made the right choice and took her plan one step further. Nothing could break the waitress's good mood. Not even her mean and stern boss. Cindy decided to offer the homeless person warm home-cooked meals for the rest of the week. The man thought the meals were delicious. Cindy and the man were both overjoyed until one day, her chef shows up at her door. Her boss at the door. Cindy was very shocked when she saw the chef standing at the door and knew immediately that she had been caught. She hesitated to open the door, but he had already seen her. The chef would never come to just visit, so Cindy opened the door of her house with trembling hands. Her boss was incredibly angry. He had discovered the tray in front of the broken wall and knew immediately that it belonged to her. Wondering what happened to Cindy, got caught. When the chef had found the tray, he decided to look at the camera images. In these images, he had seen that Cindy had secretly been hiding in the cold store. He also saw the bag with ingredients when he looked at the camera images. There was little time or space for Cindy to say anything. The chief yelled, "You're fired," when the front door opened. Then Cindy was given a 15-minute lecture on why he was in charge and why she should obey him. In the end, Cindy caught only about half of the lecture because she stopped listening. She could only think of the dire consequences of her actions. Cindy's despair. While her boss was raging, Cindy saw her whole future pass her by. Without a job, she could never pay for culinary studies. In fact, she would never get a job again with a reference like that. She had never foreseen what would happen after her dismissal. The day after being fired, Cindy walked past her former workplace. She peeked through the window, and a feeling of grief overcame her. She felt so stupid and found it difficult to clear her mind. When she started to walk away, she saw the homeless person sitting in his usual spot. As always, he was waiting for someone to talk to him, so Cindy decided to have a chat. Soon after, she found out who the person really was. The homeless person asked Cindy why she looked so sad, and she explained the situation to him. That's horrible. They can't just fire such a culinary talent, can they? This is truly a great loss for the entire culinary world. I do not agree with this and am going to put a stop to it, was his reaction. The man angrily stormed into the unkind chef's restaurant. The restaurant was packed, and the chef rushed at the man when he saw him. Cindy had followed, and the chef tried to kick them both out of the restaurant. When the homeless person revealed who he really was, the roles were completely reversed. "Leave my restaurant at once, you dirty old man! Your kind doesn't belong in a restaurant," the chef yelled at the homeless person. The chef never expected that this could be the dumbest move of his entire career. When he found out who the homeless person really was, he immediately regretted his words. When the chef was done shouting, the man laughed softly. "You really don't remember who I am anymore, do you?" the homeless person asked the chef. Then, he took off his dirty coat, and suddenly a neat suit appeared from under it. It seemed as if the man had undergone an entire transformation in 10 seconds. He didn't look like a person who lived on the corner of the street every day. He suddenly looked like an average man. The man saw Cindy look at him, in amazement and decided to explain to her what was going on. The man? I am not homeless. I am a food critic and rate the quality of the menu and service. A few weeks ago, I decided to eat here for another review, and this restaurant has become so much worse. The service was very good, but the food was way below par, and that is this tyrant's fault. So I decided to do something about it. Last week, I bought most of the shares of this restaurant. That's why I am the new owner of this restaurant. Because my last visit was disappointing, I decided to keep an eye on things from a distance. It quickly became very clear to me that this restaurant isn't managed well. Then the man turned to the chef. "Your dishes are barely edible. That's how gross they are, you're fired." The man then turned to Cindy. "Cindy, the food you've made for me over the past few days was innovative, deliciously flavored, and the best I've eaten in years. Now the position is open as a chef. I was wondering if you would be interested in the job." Disbelief and joy, Cindy couldn't believe her eyes and ears. She could hardly comprehend what had just happened. Was it a dream? Or was this really happening to her? Before she could even process what was going on, she shouted out loud, "Yes." Cindy now manages the restaurant and keeps the kitchen running. She is finally doing what she loves most and enjoying every minute of her new job. As it turns out, if you are nice to others, something beautiful may come from